Hey, guys, out to be spelled here, your voice manager, coming to you with another a special episode of the Speak Easy podcast, where we're going from boys to men. Guys, have you been checking out the series? Have you been listening in? If you have not, I don't know what you're waiting on. Go back, check them out. We made sure that we kept them short so that way you could go ahead and listen in, on that lunch break, on that run to the store. Some of y'all needed to go get more toilet paper. We understand. This is something that we are doing to not only highlight some of the amazing men and fathers who are out in the world, but also let's talk about those father stories that really make an impact in our lives. So with that being said, I'm excited about our guest for today. Hello, Chaz.
Hello. Thank you for having me on here. It's a blessing to be here and hearing your voice.
I appreciate your yes. So, Chaz, let them know a little bit about yourself, and then we'll go ahead and dive into today's topic.
Most definitely. So, Chaz Jackson, who is Chaz Jackson? Chaz Jackson is a husband to who I call the MVP of this family. We've been married going on 6 years, 13 together. We have two beautiful girls, Mila and Zuri, 1.5, 4.5 years old, Zuri. And man of faith, teacher, motivator. I truly believe, Altavish, that my purpose on this planet is to use my ambitious and impeccable mindset to inspire and listen to others. I strive to, give value and help people unleash their God-given gifts in a harmonious and loving way. So I truly believe we all have a gift. We are a gift and a gift. Physically we're a gift, but there's something special that, we're supposed to give to this planet for the next generation to grow and prosper into their greatest version of themselves. So I just enjoy connecting with people and just helping people overcome their strongholds and become a greater version of themselves. So that's Chaz Jackson, short and sweet.
I love it. So that leads us to our first question. What is a dad story or a father story that has impacted your business?
A dad story or a father story that's impacted my business? That's a good question. So this one pops into my head. A dad's story. For me, even going back to my childhood, that father figure was always in and out of my life. Growing up, I can remember being 7 years old, going to stay with my grandmother because my mother struggled with drug and alcohol abuse. Father wasn't consistently in my life. Had a stepdad that pretty much said to my grandmother when my mom was placed into a rehabilitation program, he said, I can take care of my two kids. What we're going to do is Chaz Jackson. And those little things of those inconsistencies growing up without, that father figure just honing and being in place for me, fast forward into 2020, I think it made me a better father myself because, again, they were there, but they wasn't installing those core values that will, project me into being a stronger version of myself. So as far as a father story, I feel like using my own, version of the fathers that's been in my life early in my childhood has helped me become a better father, but it also has helped my business. And, part of what Chaz Jackson do is I work with single parents, mothers, if that may make sense. And, single parents who don't, have, or single kids or youth, as far as don't have fathers in their life, if that makes sense. So being able to use that background story of, Chaz Jackson didn't always, have that father figure, but you don't have to be that individual that stays and live within that world, that you don't have to make that be your excuse because it definitely was not your fault, but it is your responsibility to overcome those things. So, yeah, as far as how that affected my business, I think, me not having that consistency to help me be consistent as a father, but also be able to teach the young kids that's placed in my path. As far as if it's single parents or however that realm may be, helping them understand of how to be a good father whenever their time comes. So hopefully that makes sense.
That made a lot of sense because it definitely shed light on the fact that a lot of times it's the things that provided the hardest struggle for us. It was the things that was the pressure points for us that really put us in a position to be able to see where other people are coming from and be that hope and help. We often talk about the difference between having a hand out and a hand up. And, it's interesting, when we look at our lives and things that we've gone through, going back and being able to say, you know what, I don't just want to be a hand out. I want to be able to be a hand up for those who are in that same predicament. That speaks volumes.
Yeah, most definitely. Most definitely. And like I said, allowing your obstacles to be opportunities. So yeah, for me, being in that whole position of, not having that consistency is, just helped me understand, well, hey, I want to break some generational change, if that makes sense. And for my girls, and if God bless me with more kids, just letting them know, some of the things that, I've seen done wrong that I'm working to do right. And, letting them know that, we're all human too, uh, even fast forwarding to my father now, we have a decent relationship, as me as an adult. So this really, allowing, people that's placed in my path know that, hey, we are all human. We all make mistakes, and I love the actual phrase that you use on your podcast is launch, stumble, and learn. So that's kind of the whole process, right? We're taking action, we're learning things, but you're going to stumble along the way. And my parents, they stumbled. They did the best they knew how. My father, my stepdad, my grandfather, they did the best they knew how from what they was taught whenever they was younger, and I didn't quite understand as a kid, but as I got older and looked back, I understand, hey, they was just doing the best they knew how at that present time. And we go through journeys in our life to make us who we are. So I was going through those things growing up to my adulthood to be able to say, hey, that helped shape who Chaz Jackson is. And whenever I'm, impacting in schools or one-on-one with a teenager, I'm able to just use those stories to be able to relate to them and show them, hey, if I can do it, you can do it. So
you hit on something, and I wanna bring a little more focus to it, because something that we don't talk about is being able to redevelop and strengthen the relationship after the fact.
right.
Because in the midst of situations, we always have to understand that as children, our parents are, a lot of times working with what they have. They're working with what they know. Uh, so it's not always the perfect scenario. It's not always the perfect situation. But what do you do after the fact? Speaking to building a relationship, as an adult, and how that truly affects you.
Yeah, most definitely. And for me, let's go back to May 2012. I'll go a little bit deeper on my story, but May 2012, my life was changed forever. It's what I call a moment of impact. We all have moments of impact in our lives where it's just like a whole world changing experience that help us become who we are today. But I can remember myself being behind my girlfriend's car. I had passed out, but I awoke into a car horn to a head-on collision that, you know, inches away from a head-on collision, but I missed it, turning the wheel to right-hand side, and I crashed into a wooden gate. By the grace of God, I woke up. No one was physically hurt, but that was a turning point for me. And even taking, some of those ideals about my father and him not being there consistently, a lot of that stuff was like baggage that I was carrying along with, I was in that situation behind that vehicle because I was intoxicated. That's part of the reason why, I passed out. I woke and I was arrested on site. But there was a lot of stuff that was going on in Chaz Jackson's life that put him in that position to a point that, low self-esteem, low, self-worth, to be honest with you. You know, I didn't authentically love myself. And it took me going into a rehabilitation clinic, taking 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It's always a journey, failing over and over again, you know, but receiving that help, and actually just talking about stuff, a lot of my kids I work with after school just really struggling, with being punctual in school. And then I'm kind of going in different directions here. But one of the things is they don't talk about what's going on. And that was something that I didn't learn until I was 25 years old, to actually talk about your problems. Because for me growing up, in a low income environment where there wasn't a lot of promotion of growth and inspiring yourself and going after everything that your heart desires, one of the limitations that was taught to me is, a man don't talk about their problems. That's a sign of weakness if you show, emotion. And I took that into my adulthood, and I made a lot of mistakes because of that, man. And I go back to that moment of impact, that car wreck, and me having that 360 of being into that rehabilitation clinic, connecting and learning how to love and seek God, and also just to share. I feel like as, I come to where I am now, going on a season of obsessiveness of, how can Chaz Jackson build a method, if that makes sense, of, what I can do to overcome some of those barriers that was involved with me, not living out my authentic self, not, authentically pouring my gifts out to the world. And, I feel like that just helped shape me in being, a speaker and an author, and being a coach for young kids to let them know, you can make mistakes, but you can overcome those mistakes. So, yeah.
That was powerful. Yeah, that was powerful on so many different levels, because we often do think that there is no turning back from the mistakes that we made. There is no, we've been taught that one thing can completely destroy you, and there's nothing that can bring you back from it.
Yeah, and even like going back to the actual your question of like how did I get to that point to talking with my parents or my dad, for instance, even more was me really diving deep on, whoa, what was going on in Chaz Jackson? What was I mad at him about? What was keeping us from having that authentic relationship? And it took me working on myself first. I did a workshop before COVID-19 hit with a group of kids that will go out into the communities and help low poverty, communities pretty much. And we had a topic of boosting morale and keeping members engaged. And one of the first things that I had to cover was, loving yourself. And it seems very simple, but I mean, and I use the analogy from when we traveled for Thanksgiving, went to New York City, the Macy Day Parade. Stay with me, short and sweet. But the flight attendant, we was flying on a plane, and she said, she went over everything, the do's and don'ts, where all the doors were, the exits. But she said something that just really stuck with me. She said, if any case you have to use your oxygen mask, make sure you put yours on first before you try to help anybody else. And even going back to this whole father thing, and in my past was, hey, Chaz Jackson had to help himself before I can forgive anybody, before I can, reach out and help anybody. So I had to put my mask on first. And that's still a journey. I'm still on that journey of, keeping it on there and knowing that I have to put Chaz Jackson first before I can help someone else, because we always want to give, but we don't ever want to take that time and pour into ourselves and rejuvenate ourselves. So hopefully that makes sense.
Sure did. Self-care is not selfish. We got to have that understanding. Self-care is definitely not selfish. And, I love that you're working with the youth. I know that we have, those of you who are listening, Speakeasy Podcast listeners, I know we have varying degrees of what you've been listening to throughout this series. Some that work with, just men, some that work with men and the youth. And, when I found out about Chaz, it was, looking at some of the things that he does with the youth. And, there's one piece that I think a lot of people don't realize, and that you have to have something that keeps you going. And so, Chaz, what is that thing that keeps you going? Because let's be honest, kids is kids, and they will run you ragged.
I'm telling you, I have one, my Chaz Jackson. She's 4.5, she'll be 5, and always ready to start kindergarten. But you take this 4.5-year-old, and you take 100 of them, and you put them in one body. You got Chaz. Like, she's always going. I love her to death. It's just like, please just hit pause for a minute, baby. Get daddy 10 minutes. No, give me 2 minutes.
Right? There is no off switch. So what keeps you motivated to keep going and helping the youth? And I asked that because there was a few years ago where I asked the question online, and I said, who is it that your voice is supposed to be speaking to right now in this moment? And it was after a fight that happened at a high school in Delaware where one of the young ladies lost her life. And I said, everyone steps up after the fact, and, they had people going and motivating them afterwards, but who was supposed to be there before, letting the young ladies know that they didn't have to be fighting over a guy, or letting the guy know that he you don't have to make a decision, but be honest with people. And, the youth that were in there that were recording, who was supposed to be saying something to them for them to be able to go and get help, so knowing that we have situations that are that extreme that happen, how do you keep yourself motivated to say, you know what, I'm going to continue to show up for these youth each and every day in some way, shape, or form, some capacity?
Well, my brain's, it's so many exits I want to take and answer this question. Because we can talk for hours about that. We can talk for hours upon hours, but my mind is going with this quote, and then I'm going to dive deep a little bit more into it. But even on my Facebook profile, I have under my name, be who you needed when you was younger. So I'm constantly wanting to be who I needed when I was younger. And again, I'm not throwing my parents under the bus. I love them to death. They did the best they knew how to do, but there was some stuff that happened in my life. And, I share a lot more about my childhood in my book, Live, Learn, Lead Powerfully, a teen leadership, guys. But there's so much that I can look back on knowing what Chaz Jackson knows now. It's like, man, if this was only in place, maybe I wouldn't have went through that. And I can, draw a blank line and just plug in stuff, but be, who I needed when I was younger. That fuels me. Also, I always, share with my kids a daily challenge that I take, and I challenge them to take, and I share that with you. Is my daily challenge is to continue to become a passionate visionary who is determined to leave a legacy for themselves by adopting unwavering life values and serving others in an area of gift and led by God. So, and we can talk for hours just on that little paragraph, but I'm gonna pick 2 things that I said. Who leaves a legacy for themselves. So what drives me and fuels me is I want to leave this world better than what I found it. And I love what Mother Teresa says. She says a quote. She says, I am a little pencil in the hand of God writing a love letter to the world. So I'm constantly finding ways to write my love letter. And I share that I'm a man of faith. So serving others is huge for me with my walk with Christ, to be honest with you. So I love serving and giving value and just waking up and knowing that I have a generation in my household, a new generation that I can break some chains with my girl Zuri and my little one Mila. So I'm constantly thinking of ways of, hey, how can I break those generational chains with my girls? So, when they get ready to be teenagers and adults, man, they're going to kill the game out to Beast. They're going to kill it, because daddy's really beating on his craft. He's really passionate about what he's doing. And I just want to, whoever God puts in my path, and they're willing and eager to learn, I just want to, pour into them and show them what I know. Again, I don't know everything, but what God has placed inside of me, and I feel like he's shown me a lot. even at this short period of time we'll be on this planet, I'm just eager to serve and give value to the youth, to educators, again, whoever's placed in my path. So
I love that. Oh my goodness, Speakeasy Podcast listeners, man, if you haven't been taking notes, I don't know what you've been doing. Go back, listen to it a couple times, replay it. That is A-okay. Share it out because there is somebody somewhere that is going to need this whole series. Okay, every time you listen, you make sure you share it. With that being said, Chaz, let them know how they can reach you online and also how they can get in contact with you if they're looking for someone, especially as support for their children while we're going through all of this time of uncertainty.
Yes. So you can reach out to me on my website at chazjacksonspeech.org. Also, as far as COVID-19 goes, me as well as 15 other leaders, including Ms. Altavis, we put together Be the Fuel Youth Summit, which is target, and the motto of this summit is be the fuel so that you can fuel others. And there's so much we can dive into that, but bethefuelyouthsummit.com. Please check out that free resource. It's been shared and implemented, and so many people has took a lot of value from it. I've received a lot of good feedback. It's even reached internationally to South Africa and London, actually, Altavis. So thank you so much on that end, Altavis, for you pouring that knowledge and giving all of that gold and that value, those golden nuggets. Hashtag unmuted. You got to check this woman out. She killed it. Also, social media, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, all that good stuff. Chaz Jackson Speak, / Chaz Jackson Speaks. You can reach out to me there. And like I said, I'm just passionate about what I do. I love serving and giving value. So feel free, if I can help you in any way, please reach back out to me. Love to talk with you, and we can all just come together and help each other through the struggles that life can bring. But like I said earlier, I truly believe we are all a gift, and you have something that's supposed to be harmonious and loving for your generation and the next generation to come. So I appreciate your time.
Definitely appreciate you. Speakeasy Podcast listeners, I appreciate you as well, because without the Speakeasy Podcast listeners, there is no Speakeasy Podcast. That part. And I am your host, Altavis Pelzer, your voice manager. And until next time, guys, don't forget to press it out. See ya.